Where do boundaries come from, and why do we need them? Anyone remember the movie or the book Matilda? She grew up with parents who were neglectful yet strict. She basically raised herself. She fed herself and clothed herself from a very young age. As she got older, her parents forgot to register her to school. That's how neglectful they were. And she had to learn on her own by sneaking into the library and devouring a ton of books. She obeyed her parents and did what her family wanted her to do. Then she got a little bit older and learned more about their character. She advocated for herself, went to school, and tried to create justice in her own life. Well, there's this musical that was made for the wonderful story of Matilda. One of the songs in the musical has a very interesting lyrics that allude to making a change in life. Matilda made a change in life by creating healthy boundaries in a family where only unhealthy boundaries existed. Here's a few lyrics of that song, and you can also find these lyrics in your handout. If you sit around and let them get on top, you won't change a thing. Just because you find that life's not fair, it doesn't mean that you just have to grin and bear it. If you always take it on the chin and wear it, you might as well be saying you think that it's okay. And that's not right. And if it's not right, you have to put it right. But nobody else is going to put it right for me. Nobody but me is going to change my story. I love that. It's so sweet. You can even look it up on YouTube. It's a great song. Matilda took charge of her life by making changes because she realized she could not depend on her family to do it for her. At first, she tried to take vengeance on her family. Remember when she put blue hair dye in her father's shampoo bottle? That was funny. But she realized that vengeance wasn't going to get her anywhere. So she took a different approach instead. She advocated for herself and took a stance to get her needs met, like going to school or living with Miss Honey, a healthy and nurturing environment for her. Now, Matilda may be a fictional story, but we can always learn true lessons for our life from fictional stories. Matilda learned her boundaries from her family, and so do we. We are not born knowing what healthy boundaries are, but we have to learn it. Most people learn how to have healthy boundaries the hard way. Not everyone is taught by their family or upbringing on how to have healthy boundaries. Some boundaries come natural to us, and other boundaries are learned throughout life. They're learned through hard lessons and also teachings like in this class. I'm going to ask a series of questions that will help to determine the types of boundaries you learned growing up. And you can answer these yes or no questions in your handout. Were there any rules in your home? Was there discipline? Did you see a family member not able to say no? Did family members share chores? Were there people in the home who weren't family at your place all the time? Were you given choices? Were you allowed to express your feelings, like being sad or happy? Feel free to pause this video now to answer the questions. In your handout, you will see that below these questions on boundaries in upbringing, you can rate how healthy the boundaries were that you learned growing up. If you didn't really have much structure in your home, like no rules, no meal times, unpredictable events happening all the time, maybe you learned unhealthy boundaries. And it's important to note that even people who grew up in highly structured boundaries can also have unhealthy boundaries because they grew up in very rigid manner. So they often live with a lot of shoulds and have-tos. Now, if you have rated your boundaries you learned growing up as unhealthy, you might have feelings of anger or sadness. And I just want to give you the hope that boundaries are not set in stone. You are taking the right step by being here and seeking to make your boundaries healthier and stronger. So give yourself a pat on the back. Be kind to yourself and comfort yourself if you need to. Now, based on the type of boundaries we learn growing up, that will be the base we use in our boundaries in our adult age. The symptoms of unhealthy boundaries would show up in 4 ways. The compliant person feels guilt and or is controlled by others. It's hard for them to set boundaries. The controller aggressively or manipulatively violates others' boundaries. To sum it up, these 2 have a problem hearing or saying no. The non-responsive person sets boundaries that don't show care for the needs of others. The avoidant person sets boundaries that don't allow others to care for him or her. To sum it up, these 2 have a problem hearing or saying yes. Can you relate to any of these? Circle the ones that you can relate to the most. Now, what are some of the reasons why some people don't develop stronger boundaries? The main reason is fear. Here's a list of some common fears. Fear of hurting another person's feelings. This is a common one. Fear of abandonment and separateness. A wish to be totally dependent on another. Fear of punishment. Fear of being shamed. Fear of being seen as bad or selfish or unspiritual. Fear of one's strict or overcritical conscience. On your handout, check off which fears have held you back from strengthening your boundaries. Well, you are getting rid of your fears by being in this class. You are countering the fears which has stopped you from so long. Say goodbye to that fear today. See ya. It's going to be a process. Maybe we'll have to say goodbye every day for 6 months to that fear. The more that you practice saying goodbye to weak boundaries and hello to new boundaries, the less fearful you will be and the stronger your boundaries will get. Let's start now. Why don't you say with me goodbye to your fear? Later, alligator. In a while, crocodile. Goodbye, fear. And hello, courage. See you next class.